friends, I'm Olivia. This is AV Club, where I'm usually talking about horror and literary fiction, and today I'm talking about all the books that I've gotten over the past couple months. I'm still rebuilding my physical library after losing a lot of books to the great cull of moving to Australia. So I'm really not feeling too bad about supporting local op shops, used bookstores, etc. In order to have a selection of books to pick from whenever I'm mood reading. The only book that I bought new in the past couple months is Painting Portraits of Everyone I've Ever Dated by Joseph Earp. This is a new Australian release that's about a woman in her early 30s who's always wanted to be a painter. It says that being a painter was the easiest way to speak without actually having to say anything, but now she's 30 and has had a major career win, and she might have left some minor things to slide, like learning how to love another human being. So she decides to paint a portrait of each of her exes, and the problem is that now she has to talk to all of them, and not everyone is excited to talk to her. So what I'm hearing about this book is that it's very funny, bittersweet, poignant. I think it's just going to be a clever, really kind of entertaining read. Almost all of the rest of these books I got on a recent trip to Armidale, New South Wales, which is actually the highest elevation city in Australia. We went there for a music festival, which was incredible. We saw a lot of great musicians, especially I loved Ruby Fields, so good. San Cisco, Vera Blue. It was a great time. We ate great food. There was vegan pies there, which is surprising. Not a lot of vegan options out here in regional Australia, but that's all right. Armidale has a great selection of bookstores, op shops, antique stores, so I was able to pick up quite a few books there. At the first bookstore we went to, that was Boobooks. Which is such a cute name because new knowledge to me, a boobook is a type of owl. And this bookshop was so cute. There was like a coffee bar, wine bar in front. We went there on a Friday night and it was open till 9 p.m., which if you're American, that means nothing because Barnes and Noble is like basically open 24 hours. But everything in Australia closes at like 4, 5 p.m. sharp, and there's nothing open till 9 p.m., especially something that's not like a bar or anything. So that was wonderful. I was very jealous that they have something like that there. But they also had a great collection of books. It was almost entirely used books, but there was a lot of different nonfiction books that seemed very curated. All of the books there seemed very high quality. We were able to sit and get a delicious tea. It was just such a nice time to have something to do, somewhere to go in Australia that's not the bar, because increasingly it just doesn't sound that fun to me. But back to the books, what I got there was The Sellout by Paul Beatty, which is supposed to be this hilarious satire where the narrator is brought up to believe his father's racially charged psychological studies will lead to a memoir that will solve their financial woes, but his father's killed in a police shootout and he is in desperate need of money, and so he sets out to reinstate slavery and segregation. I'm not exactly sure how all of this ties together, but I have heard great things about this, and all of the blurbs suggest that it's the most hilarious book ever written. However, one of them is from Sarah Silverman, so the jury is out on that one. But we'll find out together. And then while we were there, the host of our bed and breakfast, which this is like the first time I've ever stayed in like a bed and breakfast before, and it was like just us in the house. But she like had laid out this beautiful place setting, and it was just this like continental breakfast, like make your own like raisin bread and fruit and stuff, but everything was like the juice was decanted into like this beautiful pitcher, and like there was china to drink your morning coffee out of. So it was just a wonderful time. The host let us know there was a fundraiser book sale going on nearby at the race course, and so I had to go pick up some cheap books. First being All's Well by Mona Awad. I have loved some Mona Awad books in the past. uh Bunny I loved, Rouge I loved, and I feel like I hear less excited reviews of this, but also I know a lot of people who didn't like Rouge, and I loved that. This is about an actress who had failed putting on a Shakespeare play and now really wants to put on Macbeth. However, there are three strange benefactors who seem to have an eerie knowledge of her past and a promise for the future, one where the show goes on and that she's going to be successful this time. Sounds a little bit witchy like Macbeth, and Macbeth is one of my favorite plays. So I think that I could still really get on with this, even though other people may not like this one as much as some of her other works. I had never seen this cover before. I find it kind of beautiful. Like it's like a different kind of texture. Like there's not like really like glossiness to it. I love the watercolors and how relatively demure it is compared to some of her other covers. Very like feminine. All's Well is the story of a woman at her breaking point and a formidable, piercing, funny indictment of our collective refusal to witness and believe female pain. I am looking forward to this. I think that I could get to that um, relatively soon. Another old winner of the Booker Prize 2011, is The Sense of an Ending by Julian Barnes, which I picked this up thinking this might be a good selection for Shorty September later. I have run through all of my novellas, and I need to have books on, on tap for Shorty September this year. This book follows two boys, Tony and Adrian, at school. Says that Adrian was maybe more serious and intelligent, but they swore to stay friends for life. Now it's following Tony as he's retired, and looking back at that time at school, memory is imperfect. Maybe their relationship wasn't actually as close or as positive as Tony had remembered. I think that this sounds really interesting and definitely something that in a novel format sounds like something I'd like to get to. I do love a school novel. I love a memory novel. I love a complicated relationships novel. I think this one will be for sure a read in September. It is interesting how many Booker Prize nominees and winners there are here. Australia definitely takes a lot of nods in literature from England, and so we get a lot more of those than like a National Book Award or a Pulitzer. I can't tell you what made me pick this up in the first place because I'd never heard of it before. Isaac Bashevis Singer's Enemies: A Love Story. It follows Herman Broder, who's a refugee and Holocaust survivor, and he has three women in his life. The woman who hid him in a hayloft from the Nazis, his first true love, and his first wife. Unsure of who he is, what he wants, and whether he can find peace, Herman navigates a crowded Yiddish New York with a sense of paranoia and impending doom. It just sounds really good to me. I love a complicated relationship story. I love a New York story. You can see how it might get complicated when all these people have unique ways their love could have been shown and how that makes it complicated. This will be a very humane, funny novel, and also maybe a contender for Shorty September, although at 200 pages in tiny font, I think it might be deceptively short. The next one I'm not exactly sure how to feel about because it's been so widely recommended, but specifically unrecommended to me. Like I feel like everyone loves it except for the people who tell me I don't think you're gonna like it, which is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, which, if you're not familiar, it has these familiar tales and legends: Red Riding Hood, Bluebeard, Puss in Boots, Beauty and the Beast, except a feminist twist on all of them. My friend Juan at Plagued by Vision said that he didn't think I would like this, and I am usually pretty inclined to believe him. However, it's been so widely recommended. I just thought that I would have it on hand because I think that I'm curious enough now. I think telling me that I won't like something, unfortunately, makes me a little bit more curious about it. So, also another Shorty September nominee. This one would be a Shorty September nominee, except for that I've actually already read this. I just read this, finished it last night. Bonjour, Tristesse by Francoise Sagan. And this is a book about a young girl in France who lives with her father, and she's a teenage girl just kind of running amok with love, and so is her father, and they're both kind of messy in relationships. She doesn't mind that her father has mistresses and can't necessarily be depended on to be there. And so whenever he decides that he is going to remarry, she sets about on a plot to make sure that that does not happen. And this kind of feels like a Lana Del Rey style book to me, that it's just like so messy. All of the characters are bad and self-obsessed and over dramatizing their lives, so melodramatic. um it was kind of a hoot, and for like a short book, like I think I gave it 3 stars, but it's like a very likable 3-star book. I like something that's just drama. If you ever want to read a book where the characters are all like kind of annoying, then maybe this would be a good time for that one. And then maybe the one that I'm most excited to have found is The Other by Thomas Tryon. And this is a book about two brothers, one who is like very good and the other is very bad. Um, Holland, who plays mischievous pranks, Niles, who's eager to please. The Perrys live in a New England town where their family settled centuries ago. The twins' father have died in an unfortunate accident. The mother is not recovering well from the shock of his gruesome death, and Holland's pranks become increasingly sinister. A landmark of psychological horror, this is described as, and I feel like I want to read more backlist horror, more vintage horror. This was first published in 1971, so more stuff from that era that's not really historical, but also isn't just mainstream releases. I love A Bad Kid. I think I'll really like this one. This one seems like an out of the box pick for me because it seems so nice, and that is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. This book is about a small medieval Italian castle to be let for a month of April. Four very different women take up on this notice that was put in the newspaper. Two women who are fleeing unappreciative husbands, beautiful Lady Caroline, who's sick of being grabbed by lovesick men, and the imperious aging Mrs. Fisher. On the shores of the Mediterranean, beauty, warmth, and leisure weave their spell, and nothing will ever be the same again. Oh, I just think that this will be a wonderful like springtime read. I like a lovely book every now and then, something that's just nice, like as a palate cleanser. Something maybe to even be read slowly, something definitely to be read in the sunshine, maybe at the park, lounging in the grass. So I think that it will be nice to have a book like this on hand. This is a completely new to me book. I found this at the op shop. This author is actually the cousin to Catherine Mansfield and had a pretty interesting life where she was born in Australia, lived in Europe, and then moved to the United States at the end of her life where she died. I feel like something that I can learn a little bit of history with too. And I think that the connections that the author has are interesting. This book was actually picked up by my partner Daniel at the op shop. However, it's a Benjamin Stevenson book, and I have read the entire Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone series as of yet. It's only 3 books so far, but this one sounds really interesting. Either Side of Midnight. The mystery starts when a TV presenter is about to deliver the monologue for the popular current affairs show. He seems nervous, and everyone thinks that he's about to propose to his girlfriend live on air. However, instead, he pulls out a gun and shoots himself in the head. He has a grief stricken twin who believes that his brother was murdered. However, everyone saw what happened, so how can it be murder? The detective in this is Jack Quick, a disgraced television producer who takes the twin brothers' money to investigate what's actually gone on. I'm not sure if I'll like this as much because the other books are so funny, and I don't think this is going to be funny in the same way, but he does definitely write a good mystery, and this is like a very interesting premise, so I am excited to get to this. And then the last 2 books are from Gallery U in Uralla, which is between here and in Armidale, where we went to the music festival. Coolest store. I loved being on vacation up there because everything is just like so romantic, especially when it's cold, because everywhere has like a fireplace inside. Like the pub had a downstairs kind of like taverny feel because it was like all stone and there was a fireplace in the middle. It was just like really lovely. This bookstore also had a fireplace in it. It was just so nice, and they had so many different kinds of used books and a lot of prints that were made from, I'm guessing, kind of salvaged books that they couldn't resell that were in some way damaged but had, vintage illustrations cut out of them. Stuff like the Gumnut Babies and historical drawings of places in Australia. We got one from our city. And the books were very well priced. They had like a whole selection of penguin books. And I just decided to pick up something that I'd never heard of before. Just for the record, by Stanley Price, which is described as a brash, jolly, vulgar book about the new wave hitting Britain. And it follows Breeden, who scorns the establishment. He's one of the new men of British culture, the new men who write the working class novels, compose the music, write the lyrics, dramatize the squalor, and then buy shares in the show. This sounds like Common People by Pulp uh, as a book. And I think that that sounds really interesting. I've obviously never heard of this before. Who knows if I'll actually get on with it so well, but I am very hopeful that it will be funny. And I think that the historical nature of it and the fact that it's a time in England that I'm not actually so familiar with will be transportative in some kind of way. And then the last book that I found was Anglo-Saxon Poetry, which obviously assorted authors. If you I'm not sure if I've talked about it before, but my undergraduate degree was in English with a concentration, a minor in linguistics. And multiple of my linguistics classes were in Old English. So I actually learned Old English a bit in college. And what we did not read in Old English was Beowulf. What we did read was a lot of Anglo Saxon poetry. I've read a lot of this battle poetry, a lot of the religious poetry in the original Old English. And my Old English books were something that I did give up whenever I moved, and I've just been missing them so much. I feel like it was a really special time in my life, and um, my professor was really special to me, and it's just such a gift to be able to find this like really cool cover, really gorgeous edition of it so that I can read the Battle of Malden. But it has been so long since I've read anything in Old English that yeah, I definitely need a translation of it now. Even if I never read this cover to cover, this is just something that is meaningful to me and representative of a time in my life that feels so far away now. Um, and then my grad school experience was so different, not being in English, that I do kind of like romanticize those years where I was just like studying literature and criticism. And obviously, it's something that you can still do on your own, but I do miss like my professors and the classroom environment, getting to talk with peers and being in like those friendships that are made over those like very niche subjects. And you're like, whenever you're out of the classroom, you're like, what do I even talk to you about if it's not battle poetry? But yeah, those are the 10 books that I've gotten recently. Wasn't really planning to haul again so soon. However, whenever there's a big book sale and you find special books that you've been looking for, then things happen. In the comments below, tell me about a book that you've gotten recently, the best op shop book you've ever found, or if you've read any of these, let me know what you think. But I will talk to y'all again soon. Bye.